Shalom and welcome back to the Rashi Nosh. I'm Pastor Matt. As you can see, my wife Kara is not here. So last week for our study in the Torah portion, we had an extra guest. We had Millie, our dog, who wanted to be a part of the video. So this week, I'm afraid we are missing a guest. My wife is celebrating my mother-in-law's birthday, her birthday today, in South Carolina. And in the United States, even though they are a few states away from where we live in Florida, it's only a 4-hour drive. And so different times of the year, either one of us or both of us will go and visit my in-laws and my, not just my mother and father-in-law, but my two brothers-in-law and my sister-in-law are up there as well. So happy birthday to my mother-in-law, to Pat Adams. And it's a beautiful thing that even though they live kind of far away, for us in the United States, 4 hours isn't too terrible of a drive. So happy birthday to her. And I know my wife is having a wonderful time up there. Our daughter, our youngest daughter, is actually there with her as well. So I'm flying solo today as we enter into this Torah portion called Devarim. We're entering a new sefer of the Torah, a new book of the Torah, Deuteronomy or Devarim. And the first Torah portion is named the same as the book. So the first Torah portion is called Devarim as well. And as you know, as we've been going through this JPS, Rashi Torah discussion commentary, this Torah portion, every Torah portion has three examples of a verse and Rashi commentary and some discussion questions. And I've chosen one this week based on my own family history. So we are on page 150 if you have the book, and this particular one is called George Washington Slept Here. Some of you might already know, if you've heard me talk about my family's history, where I'm going here, but if not, this will be an exciting journey for you. Before we begin, if you have not already done so, please subscribe to this channel. Please like and comment on this video and share it on your social media so that it can go far and wide in spreading the message of this Messianic faith. So what it says here under the heading George Washington Slept Here, when visiting sites from the Revolutionary War period, which is 1775 and 1783 here in the United States, one often hears the claim George Washington slept here. George Washington, as the American military commander, would have lodged in a variety of places. But it seems unlikely that all these claims of association with greatness are reliable. As the Parasha details the Israelites' approach to the land of Israel, a verse highlights another association conferring status and prestige. Start out and make your way to the hill country of the Amorites and to all their neighbors in the Ahavat, the hill country, the Shephelah and the Negev, the seacoast, the land of the Canaanites, and the Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. This is Deuteronomy 1:7. Rashi comments on the description of the Euphrates River as the Great River. Why is it called the Great River? Well, it says here in Rashi that because the Euphrates is mentioned in association with the land of Israel, it is referred to as great. This is consistent with the Proverbs that state, a king's servant is a king. Attach yourself to the chief and people will bow down to you. Become close to one who is anointed or distinguished, and you will become anointed. This is Rashi's commentary on this verse, verse 7 of chapter 1 of Devarim. Rashi explains that the designation of the Euphrates as the Great River derives from its connection with the land of Israel. He also cites Proverbs teaching that people's association with influence, both how they are perceived and how they see themselves. It affects how they see themselves and how other people see them if they're associated with a great person. So Rashi advises us to choose carefully the company that we keep. So here's a question for discussion. The Jewish world has traditionally attached great importance to one's lineage. So much so that in earlier generations it was common to create a family tree highlighting any famous ancestors to improve your children's marriage prospects. How far back can you trace your family line? Have there been any famous or infamous relatives in your family? If so, what is your relationship to them, and how, if at all, has this association affected your life? Now, here's where we get to George Washington slept here. As it said in the introduction, there are many claims to this, but probably a lot of them are dubious. But I have an interesting familial distinction in that my eighth great grandfather, in other words, great, 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 count 8 greats, was a representative to the Continental Congress at the time of the American Revolution. He represented the state of New Jersey, and he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. His name was John Hart. He was a man that had a large farm, and in fact, the farm was not completely destroyed, but was ransacked by Hessian soldiers, hired guns, so to speak, that worked for the British, and they ransacked his land and farm, and in fact, he had to hide out in a cave from British soldiers for quite a while. Now, the reason I bring him up is between the 22nd and 24th of June in 1778, George Washington and his army, at that time was over 12,000 soldiers, actually slept for a few days, camped on my grandfather's land in New Jersey. And at least once it is confirmed that Washington dined with my eighth great grandfather, John Hart. So this would be the person in my family tree that I would say is, as the question asks, is famous. Someone who put everything on the line and really lost everything because of agreeing to separate from England and become our own country. And that's what this whole war was, the War of the Revolution in the 1770s, going into the early 1780s. So, I actually have a George Washington slept here story in our family. Now, that doesn't really do anything for me. On the American Independence Day, on the 4th of July, I usually think about that or watch a video about John Hart, my grandfather. And I might, sort of think back to what it must have been like for him and his family. This is really the only connection that I have to that. The question here asks, has this association affected your life? Well, because of that, we are, my father and my brothers, are in a position to be what is known as Sons of the American Revolution. I simply need to submit my documentation. One of my brothers has already done that, and I've been to a meeting of these Sons of the American Revolution where it was at the 250th anniversary of what is known in the United States as the Boston Tea Party. It was one of the things that really angered the colonies against the British Crown and their taxation of tea. And it is said that one of the main reasons that Americans drink more coffee than tea, unlike our sort of brothers and sisters across the pond in the UK, is because of this anger that we had over the taxation of tea. And rather than accept the tea and the tax associated, we simply dumped it all into Boston Harbor, and that is called the Boston Tea Party. And so for the 250th anniversary of that, there was a man, the leader, at least he was leader at that time, a few years ago, of the local Sons of the American Revolution, and he dressed as General Washington and made a quite a good, shall I say, impersonation. He really did look a bit like George Washington, and had the full garments, the military uniform made of wool, and it was quite a thing. So the only person that I have related to me that has any sort of notoriety or fame would be this man that signed the Declaration of Independence. Now, our second question is, have you ever had a relationship with someone that you consider to be great in some way? If so, describe this relationship and any influence it has had on you. I would say that in my life would be my father. My father, who's technically his name is Robert Charles, but he goes by Chuck. Everyone has always called him Chuck. And he would be the person in my life that I would say is a great person. We even made a joke last week when my wife was here that it seems that every time I teach, not just on the Rashi Nosh, but in the Pearls of the Torah or in the kosher pastor classes or in teachings for Ahavat Ammi ministries, it just seems like I'm constantly quoting my dad. He is a person that I hope to emulate in some way. Even though I'm my own person, I'm not a copy of him. There are things about him that I hope I put into practice and hope I can emulate. He's a very gifted teacher and preacher, and always makes difficult things easy to understand and remember. And I hope I can be like that in some way. I think it's interesting that as the Torah describes the Euphrates River as the Great River, and as Rashi says, it's called great because it is associated with the land of Israel, which itself is great. I think I find it interesting that we can, in attaching ourselves to someone or something that is notable, that we too share a bit of that distinction, a bit of that, as it says here, prestige. I would hope that my association with my father would give me a bit of that merit, a bit of that, I don't know what you would call it, a bit of that maybe trust. I think it has always been a thing where people, when they find out who my father is, especially people in our local area, there's almost like an automatic, oh, I trust you. I have faith in your integrity because of who your father is. I think it's always been like that in my area. I've mentioned it before, but there's even a Citizen of the Year award that's given out in my city every year, and the first modern recipient of that was my father back in 1999. And I was very fortunate and blessed to actually receive that award in 2003 because of my work with youth in the area. And that is a legacy that we can be proud of. I think, especially for us as men, that we can put a lot of stock in our careers and our identity as to what we do for work. But to me, it doesn't really matter what your job is. It matters how you do it. And if in you doing your job or you being an influence on people, you are remembered by people or you are respected by people, I think it's a positive thing if that respect and that honor can be passed to people that are associated with you. So I think it's a good example to us. I just thought it was interesting. George Washington slept here, and I actually have a story about that with our family. I've never been to the farm in New Jersey. In fact, I think except for being in the airport, I don't know that I've been in the state of New Jersey, but it might be good for my family and I to maybe take a trip there and to view the land that our grandfather owned and where George Washington's troops camped. Thank you once again for joining us on the Rashi Nosh here. Next week, my wife will be back with us, and it will be good to continue to study the Torah along with you. May I just give you a blessing and greetings as we enter into the very serious time of Tisha B'Av, of the 9th of Av, and the fast that is accompanied with that. And let me give you the traditional wish that we say to one another of, may you have an easy fast. This is the date of the destruction of both temples. They were destroyed on the exact same date in across different years. Of course, in 586 BC, and then in the year 70 by the Romans. So it is a day that is looked at as is like cursed on the Jewish calendar. It's the date of the bad report by the spies that went to scope out the promised land. And because they did not believe God, the 10 spies, because they didn't believe God, not only was the generation punished by wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, but also this day, many, many terrible things have happened on this exact day, the 9th of the month of Av. So as we mark this time, and it's important that we not only participate in Israel's feasts, but their fasts as well, as we join with the Jewish people worldwide. So may you have an easy fast for Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the month of Av, and pray that you will watch our broadcast on that day. I'll be doing the initial teaching for that, and we have many, many teachers from all over the world that we are using high technology to allow them to speak in their own languages, but we will hear them in English. So please tune in to that. It will be a time that will be very special and reverent as we mark this day. Thank you so much for joining me. We will see you next week here for the Rashi Nosh. Shalom.